Item 5. Okay. Call to order. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Would someone like to make a motion for the approval of a flexible agenda? Make a motion for the approval of the flexible agenda. Thank you. Is there any public comment? John, anybody? Thank you. Number 3, consent items for possible action. Okay. Oh. Okay. We're going to be voting on the approval of a flexible agenda. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Okay, so consent items. We have the personnel report.
Let's go back to number 2.
Okay, any public comment? Thank you, John. Okay, number 3, consent items. Any comments on any of the consent items? Okay. Make a motion. Who wants to make a motion to approve the consent items?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, trustee Kangas.
Make a motion that we approve the consent items.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Second. Thank you, trustee Dickerson. Okay, let's take a vote. Is there any public comment? Okay. All righty. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. So now we're going to,
Let me, if you're all introduce this real quick. So before you tonight, item number 4 is a consideration of corrective action pursuant to NRS 241.0365 on action previously taken by the Board of Trustees on February 14, 2023. And so what this agenda item is, the Board of Trustees will consider whether to rescind the vote taken on agenda item number 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14, 2023. In your packet tonight is the material that was presented with that agenda item in February. I am not going to ask Mr. Walling to re-present. He's presented that to you unless you would like him to. And then the board will need to then take action on whether or not they want to rescind that action with a motion, a second, public comment, and a vote. Any questions of what we're doing?
item 4. I'm not finding item.
Oh, you know what? So they're actually, the materials from last time are actually attached to item 5.
Okay.
So what we need to do first is decide if we're going to rescind the action and then retake action on that. So.
Please make sure to use your microphone.
So do I just ask for a motion?
Yep.
Okay. Could I have a motion to rescind NRS 241.0365?
Okay, so what we would be looking for a motion is a motion to rescind the vote taken on agenda item number 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14, 2023.
So I read 5. I'm reading 5.
Well, you could also read underneath where it says the Board of Trustees will consider whether to, and so somebody could motion to rescind the vote taken on agenda item number 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14, 2023.
Trustee Kangas?
I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees rescinds the vote taken on agenda item number 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14th, 2023. And that is grant funding for calendar year 2023.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Magnata. Okay, public comment?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little out of it, but we're rescinding it so we can re-vote on it again. And we're voting on it again because, if someone could clarify for me again.
So the reason, for the special meeting and issue of whether to rescind the vote on this particular item is because there's been an allegation of an open meeting law, from the meeting in February, that the discussion went beyond the items as they were agendized in that particular meeting. So, as a form of corrective action, the board can choose to rescind that vote. Open it up again for, comments by the trustees as well as the public, and vote again on the same item.
Now, does this have to do with the list of items that Susan brought in and that we typed up and handed out? No, that was a different one.
No, that's the one.
Same item, but different issue.
But Doug, the issue was more about, if you remember, it was a 2-hour conversation and it went away from grants. It got onto other topics of critical race theory and while all this may be tied to that under the umbrella, the conversation got off of exactly what the agenda item is. And so the recommendation has been to take corrective action,
Okay,
which
so-
we're able to do.
So we take corrective action, then that complaint goes away. And now we bring it before the board again today. And we have all our paperwork in a row, or our ducks in a row. Okay,
So the complaint doesn't go away. But under the statute, under NRS 241.0365, the board can take steps to correct the action. It's not an admission that anything was of wrongdoing or violation of the meeting law. And the allegation is just that, an allegation under the open meeting law. But it doesn't go away. We still have a responsibility to respond to it.
You have, the motion is made to rescind, but it is not stated in the motion that for corrective action.
So the agenda says the consideration of corrective action, and it cites to the statute.
I see the corrective action, but I'm not seeing where we rescind the motion. That we rescind anything in what you have here. Doesn't say it.
The motion was to rescind.
I understand that. But that's not the topic on the agenda. It's
And
to
it-
rescind.
look on the page on your right, yeah.
Reconsidering if you want the
Look on the page on your right. Right here. Look,
Look on the page to the right.
You're on number 4, correct?
I know, but look over here where it says point detail.
On the bottom, underneath. The small record. Can I say, Trustee Dickerson, thank you. So we don't have to change anything, we're just revoting. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, public comment?
I have none.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Yes, for public comment, time to vote. Okay, all in favor of rescinding item 11 from the February 14th meeting, say aye.
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 No, let's go back
The
and
motion has to be repeated.
Even though he just did it.
Well, I want some of the word verbiage, I think we probably need to revote and be very specific what we're voting in. So
Okay,
the motion on the floor, the motion that you are on right now is there was a motion to rescind the vote taken on agenda item number 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14th, 2023. Grant funding for calendar year 2023. That's what you're voting on when you vote.
okay.
And now take your vote. Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. So now we're going to number 5, reconsideration of agenda item number 11, the regular board meeting held on February 23rd,
February 14th.
February 14th, sorry. If the, should I continue reading this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If the vote taken on agenda item 11 of the regular meeting held on February 14th, 2023 is rescinded, the district will request authorization to apply for grant funding for the 2023 calendar year. The board will discuss the terms and conditions under which the board might authorize district staff to apply for grant funding. This may include discussion on grant applications, which might require the district as a condition to receiving grant funding to promote concepts of critical race theory such as intersectionality, equity of outcomes, or sexualization of students. So now go to consideration of corrective action. Number 6.
No,
Well, we gotta give
so
it-
now this is where, if the board chooses, this is where you're gonna retake your action. And we took it on in February.
Okay, so then someone's gonna need to read this. So someone's gonna make a motion. Trustee Burns,
I want to make a motion for corrective action. On item number 5. Grants for February agenda. Board possibly resolution for grants. Possible motion. This is the motion. Authorize district staff to apply for entitlement and competitive grant funds as well as other grant opportunity as long as those grant opportunities do not require conditions upon the DCSD, which includes specific components of critical race theory, including intersectionality, oppressed and oppressors, equity, equality of outcome, not opportunity. Number 3, any kind of sexualization of K through 12 students, including but not limited to non-traditional pronouns or genders taught. In addition, district staff is directed to develop a grant application board policy which aligns with the conditions set forth in this motion. This policy by no means can be construed to knowingly discriminate against any person or group based on the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States.
can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Dickerson and trustee Burns. Is there any comments from the board?
I would like to say something here. I know that this was a hot button issue early on. And I got to thinking about, there's all kinds of policies that are made for teachers and staff. And, you can't drink alcohol at school, whatever. And so, those don't upset people because we need structure. And I really look at this as just being a little bit of, it's policy like any other policy. And I just kind of wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Dickerson. John, any public comment?
No.
Thank you. Ready for motion?
we have a motion.
Oh, we have a motion and we have a second. Okay, well, it's time to vote. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Five, all opposed?
No,
No.
5 in favor. Trustee Magnata, trustee Engelkirk, trustee Jansen, trustee Burns, trustee Dickerson. All opposed, trustee Kangas, trustee Wilkerson. Thank you.
All right. So, yeah, so moving on to number 6, what we are going to be doing on this is following that February 14th vote, we were directed to develop a policy, which we did. Board took action on both a first reading approval and a second reading approval. So because we've had to redo the very original thing, we need to rescind both of those. Next 2 items will be rescinding the votes of those first and second reading. Coming up in the agenda, then we will revote on the first reading, And then the second reading will come on the May 16th meeting in consent. So that's kind of what we're doing in the next few agenda items.
So,
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we rescind the vote taken on agenda number 10, a special meeting held on March 20th, 2023, first reading of board policy 621, grant application authorization.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, trustee Dingus. Okay, any comments from the board? Any public comment?
Seeing none.
Great. Okay, time to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. All in favor, 6 in favor, and trustee Dickerson is opposed. Yes, number 7.
I'd like to make a motion. Board of Trustees will consider what to rescind the vote taken on agenda item number 2G of the regular board meeting held on April 11th, 2023. Second reading of board policy number 621, grant application authorization.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, trustee Byrd. Okay, any comments from the board? Any public comment?
Seeing none.
Thank you. All right, it's time to vote. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay, 6 ayes, 1 nay. Okay, sorry. All opposed? Thank you. Trustee Gilkerson opposed. Thank you. Okay. Number 8. So now we're moving on to number 8, reconsideration of.
First reading.
So, who would like to make a motion for number 8? Trustee Dickerson?
Oh, I thought you, okay. I'll make a motion for reconsideration of agenda item number 10, of special board meeting held on March 20th, 2023. For the microphone. I'm sorry. I'll make a motion for reconsideration of agenda item number 10.
Trustee Dickerson, sorry there. So I think, the motion on this is just going to be for the approval of the first reading of board policy 621 grant application authorization.
Okay, that's what I was gonna read right here.
Yeah, I think, what's that? Yeah. Caroline, I think you do not necessarily want the reconsideration on the motion that I'm gathering.
No, the motion for approval of the first reading, the language isn't written in, number 8. So you just have to state your motion.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't know.
Yeah. What would you recommend?
So,
Is it anything to do with changing the language at all?
no, no. So you've rescinded the first reading that was previously done in March of board policy 621. And so for item number 8, the motion would be for approval of board policy 621. The first reading.
Okay. I make a motion for approval of item number 10.
No.
The first reading of board policy number 621.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second line.
Okay. Anyway, okay, I make a motion for first reading of policy number 621 for grant application authorization.
For the approval?
For the approval.
Do I have a second on that?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion from the board? Any public comment, John?
No.
Thank you. Okay.
I have, so basically what you're doing is you're taking the paper that you read in the item 6, and we're putting it in a board policy there, further directive, where we ask you guys to make a directive, so this isn't any more detailed. My only comment would be, do we want to see this written out? Do you think we need?
It's in your.
It's in.
Well, no, I have the original and I have that one. I have this one and I have the other one too, but I'm just wondering if we should be directing it to be more detailed or not. It's just a question of the board, or are you satisfied with it the way it is?
I think Mark's the one that's gonna be doing this, and I think, Mr. Walling, you're clear about what our intentions are in this policy, correct?
So again, we have to be very careful saying we're clear about something because Mark won't be here forever. This policy though has been approved by the board previously. It's the exact same. I think it reads verbatim from that other sheet.
It doesn't, because there's a few words different, but that's it.
Such as,
This one. The words critical race theory are not in the second one, they're only in the first. Yeah, it's in this one, it's not in this one. We're
this
only
was what was approved previously
Okay,
by the
we're only
board.
talking about, this one. We're not talking about this.
We're talking about, no, we're talking
We're talking
about,
about
Okay,
This
then,
one.
okay,
Yes.
I didn't understand, okay. All right, that's fine.
my only comment was basically what was done here with this board policy was to take exactly what was written here and put it in a board policy. Whereas on the item number 5, it says in addition, district staff is directed to develop a grant application board policy which aligns with the conditions set for purpose. So I guess it will. So I think we can.
Just want to make sure we get it right.
Is this the one that is actually in place right now? The one that we voted on?
nothing is in place right now, but it is exactly what you voted on previously.
Previous.
As a first reading and a second reading.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was previous.
Yep, there's been no change.
This is changed too.
That was what was copied the night of that board meeting and distributed during the board meeting. That's that exact document. Yep.
Okay, and that says critical race theory. That is the change. Now that we've deleted this one per se, we're changing to this one.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, will you please clarify?
So the document that you have in your hand right now is what the motion was to
Right.
direct them to create a policy. That's what you have in your hand is not a policy. So after that
This is
meeting,
my motion.
correct? Well, that's your motion today, but that was Mrs.
Yeah,
Hanson's
today.
motion in the, correct. But that is a supporting document that was used to create the motion for the meeting that directed Mr. Lewis to come forward and create a board policy. And that board policy was created, brought forward as a first reading at the February meeting. And then brought back as a second reading and approved it both for as the board policy based on that motion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can I clarify further? You have just rescinded those actions of approving the first reading and the second reading of this board policy. So
We're gonna rewrite it.
this is the board policy that sits in front of you tonight as the first reading that you've directed the superintendent to bring forth. So if you have changes that you want to this policy, you're free to make them tonight. So if you need a minute to review it, I would suggest that you do that and determine whether you want to pass this as a first reading of this board policy.
If we change a word or add a word, can we still approve it tonight?
As a first reading, it's gonna come back as a second
Well,
reading,
it's going to anyway, right? Okay.
but your time to make changes is now.
I thought that.
And I'm gonna come back with caution. Critical race theory has proven to be a very, very broad umbrella. You've had people sit here in front of you, in front of the previous board that says social emotional learning is critical race theory. So if you add critical race theory to this, you're saying that we could never go out and get any funding for social emotional learning. Again, it's a very broad definition, and what is going to be the definition of which we have to operate? And so when this came forward, the three things that you were certain you wanted to make sure that didn't happen was intersectionality, equity of outcomes, and any kind of sexualization of K-12 students. I again fear that you're creating an umbrella that's going to make it very difficult for us to operate under because of everyone's different view of what critical race theory entails.
Well, I think that the policy here is excuse me. Okay, Trustee Dickinson is pretty accurate in, you know, oppressor, you know, one person is oppressing the other kind of a thing. I think that it is a difficult time, but we have to have something in place, and I'm good with what we have right here. I mean, you're right, critical race theory, because it's meant to do that. It's muddled. It has many tentacles that go all over the place. And that's the idea, is like, what is it? Okay, well, let's just go for everything. But this here is, you know, gender theory. I think that speaks to pronouns and genders and not, you know, that type of thing. So I'm cool with this myself,
I am too.
as it is.
And I'm sorry, you're referring to the board policy?
Yes. Board policy number 621.
Is this the original one that we voted on?
Never voted on.
That's
Never
what we
voted.
gave that to him to go.
If you remember,
This is what.
Susie came to the meeting and then it got discussed, and then people were upset that this document existed and they didn't have a chance to see it, so we stopped the meeting, photocopied it, gave it to everyone tonight. So we gave it out in that meeting, then we included it in the board packet tonight so that we have the same materials as the first time, so.
This was never brought, even from Susie, this was never brought to the board as a motion or anything that would be to give it out. It should have never been given out, period, to everybody that was here. This should have never been given out. This was one person's idea, and Rick's the one that said to copy it and hand it out. That should have never happened. That's why we're at today.
Well, do you wanna?
Trustee
I
Gilbertson.
think that, sorry.
Trustee Gilbertson.
I have a question for trustee Burns. Why are you saying this should have never been handed out, Dave? I'd like a little clarification on that, please.
This was heard.
She did that?
This was heard, and it was only heard until Rick seen it. And it was her information for her. I didn't see it. Nobody's seen it until Rick called the shot and said that it needs to be copied and handed out to everybody. That should have never happened.
And I think trustee McNaughton talked about that as well, correct? I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth, am I?
No, that's correct.
I think I felt that way too. And I don't know why that's was allowed. I mean, I don't know if we can ever go back or whatever, but legal at the time. We talked for an hour. We went around the block on it.
2 hours.
2 hours, whatever. And we went totally, nope. And then all of a sudden we went around and then it was like, well, okay. I don't even know why that was allowed either. I agree with you there on that. And I think Tony would too.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, I had my notes here too. Was I supposed to take my notes and go copy them and hand them to everybody?
And I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm not clear on exactly what happened, but I will say that we're a bit off topic from the agenda currently. So if I could just bring it back.
Sorry.
John, is there any public comment?
I see none, no.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to vote now on the motion and a second. We are gonna. Yes. We're gonna approve first reading, we're gonna approve as written. All in favor? Trustee Kangas?
No.
Okay.
No, I was just grabbing the
What are we,
We're voting on this.
okay, this is what we had.
This is the.
Why did we drop it if we're gonna turn around and bring it back?
Because that's the power, that's the system of what we're
They
doing.
had to because there was
An open meeting law violation.
Allegation.
Going to, because it was the.
Because it was out of order, because you rescinded the original action, now you have to redo every action after that. So that's what, this is the second to last step.
Okay,
Does this carry any legal ramifications?
now this is to prevent.
What kind of legal ramifications? Are you talking about the approval of the
Yes,
board policy,
yes.
the action or the actual policy?
Well, it states, violates any board policy or promotes intersectionally oppressed or oppressors, equity of outcomes or the sexualization of students, including but not limited to the teaching of non-traditional pronouns or genders. I have a problem with that.
Tony, what it's saying is that he can't accept any grants that have those conditions on the district in them. So. But we don't want people to say, here's our money, but in order for you to get our money, you have to, you have to have those conditions where you have to allow intersectionality or oppressors and oppressed. That's part of the condition of taking the grant. We're saying we don't want anybody that's giving us a grant to say that these are the conditions you have to follow to accept the grant.
Does that, stop us from any of these grants, potential grants?
I don't know that we've had any grants. I mean, Tony, I guess I would tell you and I'll tell the entire board, I think there are some things in here that somebody may look at and they may look at them differently, whether or not they're legally challenged. I don't know. I mean, I think any of our policies you could maybe make the same argument with. And so every policy could be up for interpretation too, whether or not you're discriminating. Those are all things that, again, I don't think we can answer tonight. It's just the eye of the beholder and whether or not any policy they look at and want to take action. So.
Trustee Gilbertson.
Yes, President Jansen, I have to just, I don't mean to be rude, but twice now you said we, and it's not we. It's you that should be speaking for yourself. Okay, I just want to caution you on that. When you explained it to Trustee Magnotti, you said, well, if we pass this, we feel that we want to make sure, and that's not, you need to be careful.
Trustee Engelkirk.
Tony, I just think to address your concerns, I mean, we might be opening up a can of worms here, but the things that are coming across this country, I think we have to make a stand for. And if that opens us up to legal things, I mean, you choose, do you want to have the kind of education, sex education that's going on in this country? Do you want to have the gender affirming care being taught behind parents' back? I mean, yeah, there's going to be people that probably come to us with lawsuits on these things, but yeah, we're the final line of defense here as I see it. And so it's kind of like with the mask issue that you and I voted against. I mean, that was a little different one, but I was willing to take the risk to stand up against the state for that because I thought it was wrong. And so, yeah, we got to decide if we're going to just kowtow to the woke agenda and just go along with whatever's here, or if we're going to stand up for what we believe is right. And that's what I was elected to do, and that's what I feel I'm here for. So that's my feeling on it.
Trustee Gilbertson.
I'm sorry. I just have to feel like I need to apologize because when I hear things like woke agenda, to me, that just brings politics right into this board. And we're supposed to be nonpartisan. And I guess the hairs go up in the back of my neck when I hear things like that, because we're here to do what's best for children and for our teachers. And I feel that when we put constraints on pronouns or genders, where we go with this, I disagree with that all totally. Because we are a public school and we educate all kids, whether they want to be referred to as he, they, she, whatever. So I struggle with that part of it particularly. So that's all. Thank you.
Trustee Hooker?
So Linda or trustee Wilkerson, are you saying that if there's a student that because of what is going around in our nation feels like they want to transition and they don't want their parents to know about it? Okay, well, that's what I'm standing up against here, and that's what this policy is doing. You might think it's not, but as far as I'm saying, there's a lot of stuff that you might call it political, but it's happening in our nation and it's evil. So let's not call it political, let's call it evil.
And I disagree.
And I'm gonna say another thing, Randy Weingarten, I don't know if you know who she is, the president of the American Federation of Teachers. Well, she spent her summer in the World Economic Forum, and we're not, you wanna go political? She was just in front of Congress, and what she had to say as head of the teachers union in this country is not anything that that the majority of people in Douglas County agree with. So we'll have to agree to disagree. The only thing I was elected to do, and I love the children and I love the teachers, and I'm gonna fight for them the way I think is best, and that's what we all should do.
And I will not disagree with you on that. I don't know this woman that you're talking about. I personally, I care about what's happening in Douglas County, and I know our county. I've been here for 31 years. I know most of the teachers, and I know they are not for this. So when you say the majority of whatever, I don't know. I think when we do things like this, we might be a little bit out of touch with what's really going on in our school district. I think if we get out there and talk to teachers and ask them, hey, are you for this? I think you would find, I don't know for sure, my opinion, that you'll find that the majority of the teachers and the employees, and I would guess the employees in our room, would not go for this. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Trustee Burns?
Everybody has their own convictions of things. No one on this board is trying to influence anybody else. You have your own convictions. That's what a board does. But I'm telling you, I'm basing my conviction on what's going across this country. And if you do your homework, if you do your research and do as much as study and finding out what's going on from other states across this country and stuff, if you think that it's not, we're exempt from it and it couldn't come here, you're mistaken. It is coming and it's coming fast and it's coming across this nation. I, for one, will vote and make motions and vote on things to block what I considered items that will damage families and damage children. You may disagree with that when it comes to that point, but that's where I stand and that's where I'll always continue to stand. I will not bow to anything that comes across from the state or the federal government. We will fight.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson.
Yes, and also, I'm very aware of what's going on legislatively, and that is my job, is to look at what's coming down through the state. Because those things, we may be forced to implement. I hear the state, it's state, NRS, it's this, it's that. And so there are some things that are very disturbing in the legislature right now. Absolutely. So to say that it is not coming to Nevada is not correct. It is not correct at all. It's here and it's being debated very vigorously, and it looks like they may pass a lot of this. So I would encourage you to go and look at different bills that are before the legislature, and they're not good for children. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I do have one public comment of Jim Lamb.
Mr. Lamb?
Hi, board. It's my first time making a comment. I just want to make sure. So the way that I read this is can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. The way that I read the proposed text, it suggests that the board shouldn't even come to you if there's any thing concerning those 3 or 4 issues that you've got listed there. And I would think that the board would want to consider each grant on its own merits and whether the money proposed is worth whatever the strings are attached, as opposed to making a blanket policy that rejects any grant that might have language that you disagree with. If it's ambiguous, is the staff going to bring it forward? Or are they gonna, or are they just going to not bring it forward if they're not certain one way or the other? So I would encourage you, if the staff is seeking a grant for a particular need, that the board considered each on its own merit, as opposed to proactively saying, we don't want to see any grants that have these sort of things, because almost every grant is going to have some language about equality, period. It might not have anything about CRT or gender affirming care or anything like that, but almost guaranteed it's going to have something about equality in there, which means you may be saying, we don't want to see any grants, because that's probably what you may be doing. And what would be the fiscal impact to the district of doing that? That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Okay, it's time to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, 4. 4 and 4 again, and 3 against. So 4 were, Engelkirk, Jansen, Burns and Dickerson, and against Renata, Gilkerson, and Kangas. Thank you. Final public comment? Mr. Engelkirk. Don't work out something.
Doug said you only get 2 minutes, not 40.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. My name is, for the record, my name is Dana Engelkirk. And I would like to just echo what Catherine Dickerson, trustee board member, was saying. Before 2 weeks ago, I was able to spend most every day, most every hour up at the legislative building, sitting in and hearing and giving testimony to these things that are currently on the state of Nevada decision making. I would encourage every one of you to look into the legislation that is currently being put forth. It is evil and heinous. It is not for the good of children, in my opinion. I thank you for each one of you stating your opinions. That's what our country is built on. But it is very serious. But probably 90% of the hearings and the time that I spent most every day since legislation opened in February was about sex and education. Imperative that each one of you spend as much time as you can hearing what's on the current going through committees to the Senate and the Senate. Thank you for your time. I love each one of you. You're amazing. Thank you for the good green gave my husband back.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No online.
Adjourn?